The night Sophia Romano walked back into the light was the night the devil's eyes found her. For years, she had lived like a ghost, hiding her scars beneath shadows, avoiding mirrors, and silencing memories of the inferno that consumed her family. But survival has a way of dragging you back into the world, even when you don't want to be seen. And in the brilliance of that return, she drew the gaze of a man no one dared to defy. Stay close, because what began as a single stare in a room of glittering strangers would unravel into a storm of obsession, danger, and forbidden love. The luxury hotel ballroom shimmered beneath chandeliers that spilled light like liquid diamonds. Guests laughed behind crystal glasses, their gowns whispering across marble floors as the orchestra played. To the world, it was an evening of power and wealth. To Sophia, it was her test. Her first step into society after years of silence. Her black gown clung to her figure with grace, its elegance understated but flawless. Yet no jewel, no fabric could erase the faint line of the scar that traced her cheek. She carried it like an invisible weight, chin slightly lowered, every smile practiced to hide the truth. She thought she could disappear into the crowd, but someone saw her. Across the ballroom, leaning against a pillar like a king surveying his court, stood Oliver DeLuca, the billionaire mafia boss. His suit was tailored darkness, his presence magnetic and merciless. He didn't need to speak to command a room. His silence alone was law. And yet, amid the glitter and noise, his focus was entirely on her. Not the pearls, not the diamonds, not the women desperate for his glance. Only her. Sophia froze, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. She had expected whispers, maybe pity, but not this. Not his eyes, sharp, assessing, unblinking, as though her scars spoke a language only he understood. Her heart thudded. She tried to turn away, but it was too late. His stare had already marked her. There was no escaping it. The music shifted, the dancers blurred, and Sophia felt the weight of something she could not name pressing against her chest. His expression never changed, but in the darkness of his gaze, she saw fire, recognition, possession, and perhaps the faintest shadow of something she had not felt in years, desire. She inhaled sharply, the air thick, her throat dry. Why her? Why tonight? She told herself it was nothing, just a glance. But deep inside, a voice whispered the truth she feared most. Oliver DeLuca never looked without reason. As the orchestra swelled and champagne sparkled, Sophia's world shifted on its axis. Tonight was supposed to prove she was stronger than her scars. Instead, she had captured the attention of the most dangerous man alive. And as Oliver lifted his glass in her direction, his lips curving into the faintest smirk, Sophia felt the fire of her past return, ready to consume her all over again. The first time Sophia Romano heard Oliver DeLuca's voice, it wasn't the tone of a man. It was the command of a king. Keep listening, because this is the moment where curiosity becomes obsession, and a single encounter begins to twist two fates into one dangerous knot. The night after the gala, Sophia told herself she imagined it. That Oliver's stare meant nothing. Billionaires and mafia bosses didn't notice women like her. They noticed power, beauty, perfection. She was none of those things. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Her best friend insisted on dragging her to La Notte, an exclusive club whispered about in the city. A place where wealth and sin mingled beneath velvet lights. Sophia hesitated at the entrance, her skin prickling with unease. She didn't belong here. But as the doors opened and music spilled out, low, pulsing, intoxicating, she stepped inside. The club was a world of its own. Gold light danced across mirrored walls, laughter swirled with the scent of expensive cigars, and every face seemed carved in confidence. Yet in the farthest corner, seated like he owned not just the room but the city itself, was Oliver DeLuca. and his eyes found her instantly. It was like the crowd vanished, leaving only the two of them suspended in the smoke and shadows. His stare hadn't softened since the gala. It was sharper, hungrier, filled with something dangerous. Sophia froze, her pulse racing. She turned away, desperate to dissolve into the crowd, but it was useless. He rose from his seat. The room obeyed his movement. Conversations hushed. Glances followed him. The mafia boss moved like inevitability, cutting through the club until he stood in front of her. Leaving so soon? His voice was low, smooth, threaded with command. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came. She felt exposed under his gaze, as if he could read every secret she had tried to bury. Oliver's eyes lingered on the faint scar along her cheek. Not with pity, not with disgust, but with fascination. As though it wasn't a wound, but a mark of survival he couldn't look away from. "You don't hide it," he murmured, tilting his head slightly. "Good. Scars tell stories, and I like stories." Her heart pounded. She should have been repulsed, terrified, furious. Instead, heat rose in her chest, colliding with fear in a way she couldn't understand. She forced herself to meet his gaze, her voice trembling but steady. "And what if I don't want you to read mine?" A shadow of a smile tugged at his lips. "Then, Sophia Romano, you'll find me harder to escape than fire itself." Her breath caught. How did he know her name? She hadn't spoken it. She hadn't told him a thing. And as Oliver leaned closer, his presence swallowing the space around her, Sophia realized the truth. This was no accident. Oliver DeLuca hadn't just noticed her. He had been waiting for her. The envelope was black, the ink blood red, and the name scrawled across it was hers. Sophia Romano. Stay with me because what looks like an invitation is really a trap. One that will pull Sophia deeper into a world she swore she would never touch. It arrived the next morning, slid beneath her apartment door without a sound. No stamp, no seal. Just an elegant envelope, heavier than paper should feel. Sophia stared at it, her pulse echoing in her ears. She didn't need to open it to know who it was from. Oliver DeLuca, the man who had spoken her name in the club like he owned it. The man whose stare had burned into her soul. The man who terrified her for reasons she couldn't even explain. Her hands trembled as she tore the envelope open. Inside, a single card gleamed. Dinner. Tonight. DeLuca Mansion. 9 p.m. No request. No courtesy. Not even an address. Just the sharp edge of command, as if refusing was not an option. Sophia crushed the card in her fist and tossed it onto the counter. She wasn't going. She had survived fire, loss, and years of rebuilding her life. She wasn't about to step willingly into the jaws of a billionaire mafia boss. But that night, as the city lights blinked against her window, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, until the message appeared. "Refuse me, and I'll burn away everything you've rebuilt. Your past won't stay buried forever, Sophia." Her blood froze. She tried to steady her breathing, but her body betrayed her. Fear coiled, sharp and merciless. He knew. He knew something. Another message followed. 9 p.m. Don't make me come to you. Sophia sank onto her couch, her scar burning as if the flames had returned to claim her. She didn't understand why Oliver DeLuca had chosen her, or why her scars fascinated him. But she understood one thing. Men like him didn't send invitations. They delivered sentences. At 8:55, dressed in the only black dress she owned, she found herself outside wrought iron gates taller than any building she'd ever lived in. The DeLuca mansion loomed in the distance, glowing like a palace, yet casting shadows darker than night itself. The gates opened without her touching them. Someone was waiting. As the car lights behind her blinked twice, a silent signal, Sophia realized she wasn't just expected. She was being watched, and the true danger wasn't in stepping inside the mansion. It was in what Oliver DeLuca already knew about her scars, and the story they told. The mansion was a labyrinth of shadows, but Oliver's gaze burned brighter than any light, pinning Sophia in place as though she were his most dangerous secret. Stay with me, because this is the moment when fear and desire collide, and Sophia learns that sometimes the most terrifying prison isn't a place, it's a man's eyes. The dining hall was silent, too silent, as though the entire house was holding its breath. Crystal chandeliers glittered above her, painting the room in gold. But Sophia felt nothing but cold. Across the long mahogany table, Oliver DeLuca leaned back in his chair, studying her like a puzzle only he had the right to solve. She refused to speak, refused to ask why he had dragged her into this palace of glass and secrets. But the silence between them grew heavier, thicker, until her heartbeat filled the air. Finally, he rose. His footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate, as he circled the table and stopped before her. Sophia's breath caught when his hand lifted. She should have recoiled, but her body betrayed her, frozen beneath his touch. His fingers brushed her scar, not rough, not cruel, but impossibly gentle, as though the mark was something sacred. They don't make you weaker. His voice was low, silk wrapped around steel. They make you unforgettable. Her chest tightened. No one had ever said that. Not her parents, not the doctors, not even herself in her loneliest nights. Her scars had always been the proof of what fire had stolen, never what it left behind. For one dizzying moment, she wanted to believe him, wanted to lean into his touch, to let his words mend wounds that had never truly healed. But then she saw it, something flickering in his eyes. Obsession. Possession. A hunger that had nothing to do with kindness. The realization struck her like a second fire. She shoved back her chair, stumbling away. "Don't!" Her voice cracked, trembling as she gripped the edge of the table. "Don't touch me like that. You don't know me. You don't know what these scars mean." Oliver's lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. It was a warning. "No, Sophia, I know exactly what they mean. And soon, so will you." The walls of the mansion seemed to close in, every window a mirror reflecting her fear. She ran, her heels clattering against the marble floor, her pulse louder than the storm brewing in her chest. She didn't stop until she reached the massive front doors. She pulled them open, desperate for air, for freedom, only to find two men in black suits waiting. Their eyes locked on her like wolves. She froze, breathless, realizing escape wasn't an option. And as Oliver's voice echoed from behind her, smooth, unhurried, Sophia understood the truth. She hadn't walked into his mansion. She had walked into his cage. The night smelled of rain and danger, but Sophia never expected to see blood spill across the pavement, nor the man who spilled it for her. Keep listening, because this is where Oliver DeLuca's mask shatters, and Sophia sees the monster and the protector bound together in one man. Sophia had fled the mansion hours ago, heart pounding as she told herself she would never return. The city streets felt safer, even when shadows clung to the alleys and every step echoed like a warning. At least here, she was free. At least here, she could breathe. But freedom was an illusion. As she hurried down a narrow street, footsteps followed. Too many. Too close. Sophia's skin prickled, her instincts screaming. She turned. 3 men emerged from the darkness, their grins sharp, their eyes glittering with menace. "Well, well," one drawled, circling her like prey. The pretty scarred bird wandered too far from the nest. Fear rooted her to the ground. She backed against a wall, clutching her purse like it could shield her. Her voice faltered. "Stay away." They laughed. One reached for her wrist. And then, gunfire cracked the night. Sophia screamed as the man dropped, blood blooming across his chest. Another shot rang out, precise, merciless. The second man crumpled, his laughter replaced with silence. The third froze, hands trembling, before bolting into the shadows. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She turned, and there he was. Oliver. His suit immaculate, his eyes burning like hellfire. The gun in his hand gleamed beneath the streetlight, smoke curling from its barrel. He hadn't hesitated. Not for a second. Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to scream at him, to demand why he was here, how he'd found her. But the words died when he stepped closer, sliding the gun back into his jacket as if the act of killing were nothing more than brushing lint from his sleeve. "You're shaking," he said softly. "You're safe now." Safe. The word cracked something inside her. She had just watched him end 2 lives without flinching. His hands were drenched in blood, yet every instinct inside her whispered that she was safe, that no one else could protect her like this. Her knees weakened, the scar on her cheek burning with heat she couldn't explain. She hated him. She feared him. But in this moment, she needed him. Sophia forced herself to speak, her voice trembling. What are you?" Oliver's eyes darkened, his hand brushing against hers with a tenderness that didn't belong in a night like this. "The man who kills for you, Sophia, and the man who won't let anyone else touch what's mine." Her breath caught. His words were chains, his presence both salvation and damnation. And as sirens wailed in the distance, Sophia realized something more terrifying than his violence. She wasn't sure she wanted to run anymore. In the silence after blood and chaos, Oliver's walls finally cracked, and Sophia learned that his darkness was carved by fire, just like hers. Stay close, because this is the moment when scars stop being secrets, and start becoming weapons his enemies will use against them both. The rain had washed most of the blood from the pavement, but Sophia couldn't scrub the image from her mind. Oliver pulling the trigger, his face calm, his eyes unblinking. They sat in the back of his sleek black car now, city lights racing past the tinted windows, the night heavy between them. Sophia hugged herself, her body trembling. Finally, she found her voice. "Why?" Oliver's gaze stayed fixed on the city. "Because they would have hurt you, and I don't allow that." "That's not an answer," she snapped, her fear giving way to fury. "You kill like it's nothing, and you expect me to just accept it?" His jaw tightened, but then, slowly, he turned to her. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected, not arrogance, not menace, but pain. "My mother," he said quietly, each word heavy. "She died in fire. I was 12. I watched the flames take everything. Her face, her voice, gone in smoke and ash. I swore that night I would never be powerless again." Sophia's breath caught. The scar on her cheek pulsed as though it understood. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not just the billionaire mafia boss, but the boy who had lost his mother to the same inferno that had stolen pieces of her. Her voice softened. "So when you look at me—" "I see strength," Oliver said, leaning closer. "I see survival. Your scars aren't ugly, Sophia. They're the most beautiful thing about you, because they tell me you fought the same fire that made me who I am." For a heartbeat, the world stilled. The storm outside faded. Sophia's chest ached with something dangerously close to understanding, to connection. But as the car pulled up to his mansion, another shadow crept between them. A black SUV idled across the street, its tinted windows watching, waiting. Sophia didn't notice. Oliver did. His jaw hardened, his hand brushing against hers, possessive, protective. "My enemies," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "They see it now. They see what you mean to me." Sophia frowned, confusion rippling through her. "What do you mean?" Oliver didn't answer. He only held her gaze, his silence a warning sharper than any blade. And in that moment, Sophia realized something terrifying. Being near him didn't just make her a target for his desire, it made her a target for his enemies. Trust was Oliver's most sacred law, yet tonight, betrayal slithered through his empire, and Sophia paid the price in blood. Don't look away, because this is the moment where loyalty shatters, enemies strike, and Sophia discovers what it truly costs to be loved by a mafia boss. The night was supposed to be ordinary, or as ordinary as life near Oliver DeLuca could ever be. Sophia had gone to the market alone, determined to prove she wasn't just a fragile shadow clinging to his world. The city air felt almost peaceful, alive with neon and noise. But peace, she would learn, was the calm before betrayal. She noticed it too late. A car door slammed, footsteps quickened, and suddenly hands were on her. Rough, cold, dragging her into the alley. Sophia fought, nails clawing, her scarred cheek burning as one of them pressed her against the brick wall. DeLuca's little treasure, one sneered, holding a knife that caught the glow of the streetlight. Let's see how much you're worth when you're broken. Her scream tore through the night. Just as gunfire cracked, chaos exploded. Shadows moved faster than her eyes could follow. Men shouted, fell, cursed. And then, through the smoke, Oliver appeared. Not the polished billionaire, not the charming mask he wore for the world. This was the mafia boss in his purest form, rage in motion, violence incarnate. By the time it ended, the alley was littered with silence and blood. But not all of it belonged to strangers. Sophia staggered, clutching her side where the knife had grazed deep. Warm crimson seeped between her fingers. She collapsed into Oliver's arms, her body trembling, her breath shallow. His face, usually unreadable, fractured with fury and fear. "Stay with me, Sophia. Stay with me." His voice broke, hoarse with desperation. Her vision blurred. She tasted iron. She wanted to tell him she wasn't afraid, but her lips only trembled. Oliver pressed his hand over her wound, his shirt soaking red. His men hovered at the alley's edge, silent, watching their boss unravel. "Find the traitor," Oliver growled, his voice lethal. "One of you leaked this. One of you sold her location, and when I find out who—" His words died, replaced with a vow in his eyes, darker than death itself. Sophia tried to speak, her whisper barely audible. "Oliver, don't—" But he wasn't listening. His entire world narrowed to the blood on his hands. Hers. As sirens wailed in the distance, Oliver lifted her into his arms, his jaw clenched, his heart raw. And Sophia, fading in and out of consciousness, realized something far worse than pain. If betrayal could reach her, it meant there was no place safe, not even in Oliver's arms. Sophia woke not to silence, but to the weight of secrets pressing down on her. The kind of secrets only a mansion built on blood could hide. Stay with me, because tonight, the truth becomes more terrifying than the lies. And Sophia learns that Oliver's home isn't just a sanctuary, it's a fortress, a vault, and a cage. Her eyes fluttered open to the soft glow of chandelier light. The sheets beneath her were silk, smoother than water, the scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. For a moment, Sophia thought it had been a nightmare. The attack, the blood, Oliver's fury. But then the pain in her side pulsed, sharp and real. She sat up slowly, finding herself in a grand bedroom. Gold-framed mirrors, velvet drapes, marble floors that gleamed even in shadow. The DeLuca mansion. She wasn't just in his world anymore. She was trapped inside it. Her throat tightened. She should have stayed in bed, but fear and curiosity twisted together, dragging her to her feet. Wrapping a robe around herself, she stepped into the hall. The mansion stretched endlessly, corridors branching like veins. She followed the faint hum of voices until she stumbled upon a study. its door ajar, its interior lit by the glow of monitors. She pushed it open and froze. Inside, files lay stacked like bricks of sin, names, photos, ledgers, maps of the city with red markings where Oliver's reach extended, clubs, shipping yards, entire neighborhoods. And in the center of the desk, a folder with her name stamped across it. Her breath hitched. She opened it with trembling hands, newspaper clippings of the fire that had scarred her, hospital records, her parents' obituaries. Even photographs she didn't remember being taken, her walking alone, her sitting in cafes, her staring out her apartment window. He had been watching her long before they met. Her pulse hammered. She stumbled back, only to catch sight of a wall panel slightly ajar. Curiosity overcame terror. She slipped inside. The hidden passage reeked of dust and secrecy. Steps led downward into a chamber lined with weapons, cash, and something darker, photographs pinned across the wall of men marked traitor or dead. At the center was a single face circled in red. Sophia's blood ran cold. It was hers. She stumbled back, the folder still clutched in her hands, when a shadow stretched across the doorway. Oliver's voice, low and unreadable, cut through the silence. You weren't supposed to see that. And Sophia knew. Whatever secrets the mansion held, she had just become one of them. In a mansion built on blood, Oliver DeLuca finally revealed the truth. In Sophia's scars, he found the one thing his empire could never give him: life. Stay close, because tonight, tenderness dares to bloom where violence rules, and a single kiss becomes more dangerous than any bullet. The air in the study was thick, the silence louder than any scream. Sophia stood frozen, the file still clutched in her trembling hands. She had seen too much, proof of his empire, proof of his obsession. She expected anger, rage, a punishment she couldn't escape. But Oliver didn't shout. He didn't threaten. Instead, he stepped toward her with something raw flickering in his eyes. Something that stripped the mask of the mafia boss away. You want to know why I've been watching you? His voice was low, steady, but heavy with something dangerous. He reached for the folder, but instead of taking it, he gently closed her hand around it. Because you remind me I'm not just a monster. Her breath caught. Oliver's gaze dropped to her scar, tracing it not with his hand this time, but with his words. Every day I kill, I lie. I bleed this city dry. They call me a king, a devil, a god. But I feel nothing. Nothing. Until I saw you. Until I saw the fire etched into your skin. You survived what I couldn't. And when I look at you, his voice broke, softer now. I feel alive. Sophia's chest ached, torn between fury and fragile longing. This man had invaded her life, stolen her peace, painted her into his dark world, and yet his confession shattered the walls she had built. Her whisper trembled. You terrify me, Oliver. He stepped closer, his hand hovering just shy of her cheek, never touching until she gave him permission with her silence. And you undo me, Sophia. That's the difference. Their breaths mingled. The space between them dissolved. Against every instinct, every fear, every warning screaming in her veins, Sophia let her lips meet his. The kiss was fire, burning, consuming, alive. A collision of scars and sins, fragile and furious all at once. For the first time since the inferno that had destroyed her world, she didn't feel broken. She felt seen, wanted, unforgettable. But then, bang! The glass window shattered as a gunshot split the night. Sophia gasped, breaking the kiss, her heart slamming against her ribs. Oliver moved instantly, pulling her against his chest, his body a shield as shards of glass rained across the floor. Outside, in the darkness beyond the broken window, a shadow moved, and Oliver's voice, low and furious, promised a storm. They've found us. When Sophia opened her eyes, The world was darkness, metal, and chains, and voices that promised to destroy the last piece of her she still owned, her scars. Stay here, because tonight, Sophia faces her greatest terror reborn, while Oliver vows to unleash a vengeance even hell itself would fear. Her head throbbed, the taste of iron on her tongue. Sophia stirred, wrists bound behind her, ankles shackled to a steel chair bolted into the floor. The air reeked of gasoline, rust, and smoke, like a memory resurrected from the fire that had stolen her childhood. Shadows circled. Men's laughter cut through the dark, cruel and mocking. "Well, well," one drawled, his voice rough with malice. "DeLuca's little pet, the scarred princess." Another leaned closer, his knife glinting beneath the swinging light bulb. He traced the air near her cheek, never touching, but close enough to make her stomach twist. "They say scars make you stronger. I say they're just unfinished business. Maybe it's time we finish what the fire began." Sophia's heart thundered. She pulled against the chains, the metal biting into her wrists. But no matter how fear screamed inside her, she refused to give them the satisfaction of tears. "Do it," she spat, her voice trembling but defiant. "At least then I'll know cowards kill me." The men laughed harder, but miles away in the DeLuca mansion, Oliver wasn't laughing. He stood before his crew, eyes blazing like storms over fire. The shattered glass from the ambush still littered his study, Sophia's absence a wound he couldn't contain. "They think they can take her from me?" His voice cut like a blade. "Find them, every rat, every traitor. Tear this city apart until she's back." One of his men hesitated. "Boss, the risks." Oliver slammed his fist against the table, splintering wood. "I don't care about risks. If they touch a single hair on her head, I will burn them alive." Back in the warehouse, Sophia flinched as one captor struck a match, the flame dancing inches from her face. Her scar pulsed, memories of fire and screams flooding back. The men's laughter twisted around her like smoke, but she clung to one thought, one fragile lifeline in the darkness. Oliver would come. He had to, because for reasons she didn't dare name, he wasn't just her captor anymore. He was her only shield. The match dropped. Flames licked across the floor, crawling closer to her chains. And as Sophia's eyes widened in terror, Oliver's roar echoed in the night, far away, but closing in. "I'm coming for you, Sophia." When the city woke, it smelled of gunpowder, ash, and fear, because Oliver DeLuca had declared war for one woman. Don't blink, because tonight you'll witness what happens when love bleeds into obsession, and obsession burns down empires. The night skyline of the city glowed red, not from neon, but from fire. Warehouses exploded, cars burned, and men screamed as Oliver DeLuca carved a bloody path through every rival family who dared touch Sophia. His black suit was torn, his hands stained, but his eyes, those steel-gray eyes, never faltered. Every pull of the trigger, every blade driven into flesh, was a prayer to one truth. Bring her back to me. "Boss, we've hit 3 safe houses already." Marco, his right hand, shouted over the gunfire. "They'll scatter." Oliver reloaded calmly, his jaw clenched. "Then burn the city until there's nowhere left to scatter." His voice was cold, hollow, almost inhuman. Back in the warehouse, Sophia coughed against the smoke filling the room. Flames chewed closer, the chains growing hot against her wrists. She thought of Oliver, not the mafia boss, but the man who once traced her scar as if it were sacred. Was he still that man? Or had she been dragged into something darker than the fire that scarred her? The door slammed open. Gunshots ripped through the air. Men fell one after another, and then, there he was, Oliver. Blood streaked across his cheek, his shirt soaked crimson, but his presence devoured the room. He moved like death itself, unshakable, relentless. When the last rival fell, he dropped to his knees, breaking her chains with his bare hands. Sophia gasped, her throat raw. "Oliver." He cupped her face, his bloodied fingers trembling. "I told you," he whispered, voice breaking. "No one touches you. Ever." For a heartbeat, she almost melted into him. But then, her eyes flickered to the carnage. Dozens of corpses, the smell of burning flesh, the smoke rising higher. This wasn't just rescue. This was massacre. This was love soaked in blood. Tears blurred her vision, not from smoke, but from the truth settling in. To be loved by Oliver DeLuca meant the world itself would bleed. Sophia clung to him, torn between safety and horror. And as the flames roared around them, Oliver whispered the words that froze her blood. "I'd burn kingdoms for you, Sophia, even if it means burning you with them." In the quiet aftermath of blood and fire, Oliver DeLuca, billionaire mafia king, untouchable predator, did something unthinkable. He begged her to leave him. "Stay here, because what Sophia chooses tonight will decide not just their love, but whether she survives a world built on scars and shadows." The mansion was silent, heavy with the echoes of gunfire and screams that had haunted the night. Oliver stood by the window, staring at the city lights as if they might burn him clean. His shirt was still torn, his hands raw from breaking her chains. Sophia stepped into the room, her scar catching the glow of the chandelier. She expected him to turn, to draw her into his dangerous embrace. Instead, his voice came low, fractured. "You have to leave, Sophia." Her breath caught. "Leave?" He turned, his eyes wild but soft, a contradiction only he could carry. "I've painted you into my war. Every enemy sees your face now. If you stay, they'll use you against me until there's nothing left of you. I can't—" His voice cracked, rare and raw. "I can't lose you." Sophia's chest tightened. For weeks, she had run from him, from the way his gaze pierced through her, from the storm he carried into every room. But now, seeing him break, not as a boss, not as a killer, but as a man who loved her beyond his own empire, she felt her fear shift. Slowly, she stepped closer. "Oliver." Her voice trembled, but not with weakness, with decision. "You trace my scars like they're holy. You make me believe they don't make me broken." His jaw clenched, his fists tightening as if bracing for goodbye. She lifted her chin, her eyes shining. "If you can love my scars, then love all of me. Even the parts that are afraid. Even the parts that don't know if I can survive this." Silence. His breath hitched, his mask of control cracking. He reached for her, then stopped, as if touching her would damn her. Sophia didn't let him decide. She placed his blood-stained hand against her cheek, her scar beneath his palm. "I'm not running, Oliver. Not from you. Not from this." His lips parted, words unspoken, but his eyes told the truth. She wasn't just a weakness anymore. She was his choice, his anchor, his ruin. And as their foreheads pressed together, the sound of shattering glass cut through the moment. A single bullet ripped through the chandelier, crashing it down in a storm of crystal and firelight. They weren't alone. Someone had come to remind them both. In Oliver DeLuca's world, every choice had a price. The invitation bore no joy, no blessing, only blood. The Mafia Council had spoken. Oliver DeLuca was to marry, not for love, but for war. Stay with me, because what should be a union of power might tear apart the only love that ever threatened to soften a monster's heart. The great hall of the council reeked of smoke, wine, and gun oil. Men in tailored suits sat like kings, their rings heavy with the weight of empires built on fear. And at the head of the table, Oliver stood motionless, his jaw carved from stone. "You've gone too far," one elder snarled. "A war on every rival family for one woman? For her scars? She's made you reckless, DeLuca." Another leaned forward, smirking. "We offer peace, but it comes at a price." A folder slid across the polished wood. Oliver didn't touch it. He didn't need to. The council's words cut sharper than any blade. You will marry Isabella Marino. Her father brings 50 men, 3 ports, and silence to your enemies. Refuse. And you'll face your own family's guns. For the first time in years, Oliver felt his control slipping. They weren't asking. They were binding his hands in the only chains he couldn't break: loyalty and blood. That night, Sophia waited in the mansion's garden, her scar kissed by moonlight. When Oliver came to her, his eyes were colder than she had ever seen, but his hands trembled when they touched hers. They want me to marry her, he said flatly. The words stole the air from her lungs. She staggered back, shaking her head. No, Oliver, you can't. They'll kill you if I refuse, he bit out, the fury in his voice trembling against his fear. This is the only way to protect you. Tears blurred her vision, her chest caving under the weight of betrayal. Protect me? By marrying someone else? By breaking me with your own hands? Oliver grabbed her shoulders, his grip desperate, almost breaking. His voice cracked, fierce and pleading. Sophia, listen to me. They can force a ring on my finger, but they will never own my heart. I'll choose you, even if it costs me everything. My empire, my blood, my crown. Her tears fell hot against his skin, but doubt coiled in her heart. Could love survive vows written in blood? The next morning, the city awoke to church bells tolling. The bride walked down the aisle in silk and diamonds, but in the shadows, Sophia stood unseen, watching the man who swore he belonged only to her place his hand in another's. And as the priest declared the words, Sophia realized the truth. Sometimes love wasn't stolen by enemies. Sometimes it was destroyed by destiny. The night Oliver DeLuca raised his glass to the council, he didn't toast peace. He declared war. Stay here, because this is the moment when love turns kingdoms into ashes, and a king becomes a man willing to lose it all. The ballroom was draped in gold, the scent of roses covering the stench of deceit. Isabella Marino stood at his side, her diamond smile polished for the cameras, but Oliver's eyes never strayed to her. They found Sophia, hidden in the crowd, her scar glowing beneath the chandeliers like a flame that refused to die. When the council leader raised his glass, demanding unity, Oliver finally spoke. His voice echoed, low and merciless. Unity? His lips curved into something dangerous. I won't unite with liars and cowards. He set his glass down hard enough to crack it. You've chained me with a marriage. Now watch me break the chains, and you, with fire. Gasps rippled through the room. Isabella froze, her mask of calm slipping. The elders seethed, but Oliver's men stood taller, hands on their weapons. That night, the war began. Safe houses erupted in flames. Allies turned traitors. Streets drowned in blood. Oliver's empire, built over years of calculated terror, began to fracture under the weight of betrayal. And through it all, Sophia remained. She bandaged his wounds when bullets grazed him. She steadied his hand when his fury nearly consumed him. She whispered his name in the dark, reminding him he was more than a monster. But each time her touch calmed him, he saw the danger more clearly. She wasn't just his anchor. She was his greatest weakness. One night, as the mansion burned in the distance, Oliver pressed his forehead against hers, his breath ragged. I can lose soldiers. I can lose cities. But if I lose you, Sophia... His voice broke, raw with fear he never showed. I'll fall, and I won't get back up. Sophia's tears shimmered in the firelight. She didn't know whether to hold him tighter or to let go before his world consumed her whole. Gunfire shattered the night. A bullet ripped past them, embedding in the stone wall. Oliver shoved Sophia behind him as shadows moved closer, too many to count. The council had made their move, and for the first time, Oliver DeLuca, the untouchable king, realized the truth. His empire was burning, and love might not be enough to save him. The night bled fire and steel, the city itself trembling as the last of Oliver DeLuca's empire came crashing down. Don't look away, because this is the moment where love burns brighter than power, and a king dies not with his crown, but in the arms of the only woman he ever truly loved. The mansion's grand hall was a battlefield. Smoke curled toward the cracked ceiling, blood slicked the marble floors, and gunfire echoed like thunder in the dark. Oliver stood at the center, his suit torn, his face shadowed, his eyes lit with the fire of a man who had nothing left to lose. Behind him, Sophia clutched a pistol with shaking hands, her scar catching the flickering glow. She wasn't just the girl who had once survived flames, she was the woman who had walked into the heart of the mafia and refused to break. The council's men poured in, black suits and sharper guns. Oliver fired, each bullet an oath, each strike a promise. He shielded Sophia with his body, moving like death's shadow, but the numbers were endless. Then it happened. A muzzle flash, a single shot cutting through the chaos. Sophia screamed his name as Oliver's body jolted. The bullet buried itself deep in his chest, crimson blooming across his shirt like a fatal flower. He staggered, his knees buckling, but his arms still reached for her. She caught him before he fell, her tears already spilling hot across his blood-stained skin. "Oliver, no. Please, stay with me." Her voice broke, raw and desperate. His hand, trembling and weak, lifted to her cheek, his fingers brushing her scar one last time. His lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Your scars were my healing," he whispered, his voice fading like smoke. Her sobs tore through the burning hall as she cradled him, her forehead pressed to his. "And you were mine." The world seemed to still, the firelight flickering around them like the closing of a curtain. Oliver's eyes dimmed, his breath slipping away as if surrendering to her touch was the only peace he had ever known. Around them, the chaos raged on, but for Sophia there was only silence. Only him. Only love that would outlive death itself. The camera lingers on Sophia, holding him in the flames, her tears glistening as the fire swallows the hall. Then, black screen. A single echo of his voice, soft and eternal, unforgettable.